a Celestia Light node helps scale the block size, and this causes the chain to grow more and more and more safely without, having these problems of centralization. I truly believe that rollups and service providers are the future business models how people will perform any task on the internet.
Hello and welcome to Gateway.fm. Today we are diving into one of the most critical components of Rollup infrastructure, data availability. Gateway has been using Celestia as data availability solution for our Rollups for quite some time. And today we're having a special guest, Viet, the head of DevRel at Celestia, and he will help us to shed some light on interesting questions of why data availability is essential and what particular benefits does Celestia bring to the table. So, hello Viet, nice having you here as our guest.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, and I hope today we'll learn a lot of new things, as well as I can shed the light what is Celestia.
Yeah, thank you. Let's start with the basics, like what data availability is and what tasks it solves.
Yeah, so data availability in essence is a component for blockchains to prove that data was made public for the whole world to see what is happening. And Celestia itself is only focused on that part, data availability. And of course, when you have data availability, you need to do consensus. So while Celestia doesn't do anything else like execution on Ethereum or Solana, this gives a lot of potent ways to be highly specialized at one field. And it just helps for other blockchains to tap into this abundance of block space.
What kind of data is stored on Celestia? Like if we talk rollups, what kind of data is there? Yeah,
so rollups, when they produce their blocks, they usually send their rollup block as a blob to Celestia. And then when they need to read back what was the previous block from them, they tap back to Celestia and read it out to form the next block. So basically, rollups are outsourcing a component to us, to the protocol, while we make sure that it's published and everyone in the world can see it.
Mm-hmm. And in what scenarios this data is crucial for the rollup? Why and when it should be accessed?
Yeah, so it's very crucial for rollups to have abundant DA, first for economic reasons, because I think for example, with Azuki drop on Arbitrum, there was a congestion on Ethereum 1, unfortunately, and the fee costs for users on Arbitrum was pretty much high. With Celestia DA, basically it doesn't happen. On Eclipse, it was a perfect use case when people were just tapping on the blockchain, having fun on Eclipse. And for the users, it didn't feel anything painful economically wise. Now for the rollup itself, why it is important to have the data available in case of a fraud or double spending on their rollup, they need to have the data somewhere available so they can produce either a fraud proof, if we're talking about optimistic fraud proofs, fault proofs. And in case of zero knowledge rollups, they are always coming from a perception of can't be evil. So you always need the data to be available to produce zero knowledge proofs in order to move forward. And this is where for both of the worlds, you need that data to be always available in case of fire, basically.
Okay. And what are the main approaches to storing data in rollups? Can it be just stored in a database?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of, I would say, not a lot, but some rollups definitely use centralized approaches to store the data. Like, for example, in Arbitrum, you have AnyTrust, or someone will just use, let's say, an optimistic OP stack rollup with an S3 bucket on AWS. That's not great, because definitely you are not building a really good blockchain. And we think that using those techniques is not good. And the only way to do it properly is to use permissionless DA, which is basically Celestia or like Ethereum itself, where rollups can just send the blobs as transactions, and anyone in the world can verify that the rollup is not misbehaving the sequencer itself. Yeah.
Okay, could you explain in a very simple words, like you are talking to a 5-year-old child, how does the way of storing data on Celestia differs from a centralized way of storing data in a database?
Okay, so I would say from a user experience point of view, it is kind of the same, where you just send a message that please store my little cute block, and the same can be done on a database, and the same can be done on Celestia. The problem begins when you want to verify that, let's say, I don't know, my friend John will want to verify that the block has been made available. On a centralized database, he cannot do that verifiably. Why? Because someone can withhold the data from him. Imagine you want to enter a club or, I don't know, a football stadium, and the doors are closed for you. But for me, they're always open. This is the problem with centralized databases. While in Celestia, because you can verify everything, basically it means the doors are always open for everyone, which means it's a fair play system.
With that in mind, would it be correct to say that using data availability on Celestia enhances the security of the chain and removes the dependency on a rollup provider?
Oh, I appreciate this question so much. This has been a misconception for a lot of people to understand how to scale DA reliably and securely. And yes, if you're using light nodes and you have light nodes in your network, basically a Celestia light node helps scale the block size safely, because the amount of users that are using light nodes, if they increase, then it means they're covering the whole block collectively. And this causes the chain to grow more and more and more safely without, having these problems of centralization. So yeah, verifying block space by everyone is the goal for us at Celestia, Protocol and Labs.
Interesting.
And I think Rollups providers, they are basically providing a service of its own. And this is so cool today, what we see with service providers like Gateway FM and others. You can provide a service while still keeping the verifiability aspects to the end user, meaning that you don't need to behave, let's say, like typical Web 2 companies that basically control everything end to end. And the user has nothing to say about this. And I truly believe that rollups and service providers are the future business models, how people will perform any task on the internet.
I see. The Celestia solved this problem of trust when we speak about rollup providers, because we do not store data on our side. It is stored in a decentralized manner within a very secure way of storage on Celestia.
Yes, exactly.
And how the Celestia handles data that is stored? Like you work with different rollups. Is the data from different rollups mixed up, or each particular rollup has a separate structure, data structure?
Yeah, that's also a great question. And on Celestia protocol, we have the notion called namespace IDs. So think of them as your unbothered, moisturized lane for your own rollup to know exactly what your blocks are, where your blocks are stored, so you can access them later. And while all rollups in the world who are using Celestia are sharing, let's say, one big block, in fact, they only care about that small piece of the block that they store in their particular namespace. And each namespace is unique, basically making, it's kind of like living in a big, I would say, city where everyone has their own house, but the city is big and it helps everyone to talk to each other and do business.
Yeah, and we have addresses, so we don't get lost.
Yes. So same with Celestia, this is namespace IDs. Yeah, and namespaces for rollups.
I like this analogy. Does accessing this data on Celestia require any permissions, like specific permissions, or it's publicly available?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think accessing the data as is, anyone can retrieve it, request it. However, the different problem is, how do you decode the data to understand what you see? This is where Celestia doesn't have any execution. Like, we don't even understand what people are storing on the protocol. We only know that we need to make it available so then they can decode it and know, oh yes, this is my block A, and I can see the transaction 3 from Alice. And because I know how to decode this block, I can understand it. But everyone else in the world, if they don't understand my language, then think of it as, I don't know, little India or Italy, where everyone's talking their native language, and if I'm using English, the majority of cases I will not understand what they're talking about. But I know that it's some form of language, and they coordinate somehow.
Is this level of data privacy and access control accessible for enterprise solutions? Because enterprise blockchain solutions require this additional layer of privacy and access control for to access the the transactional data.
Yeah, I think going forward, enterprises will definitely benefit from this big protocol, aka credibly neutral layer like Celestia, while because they own the execution, they can encrypt the data into Celestia. It's like the same if you think about it on the public internet. Everyone knows the packets that are sending to each other, but we don't know exactly what they are because we don't know the private key to decode it. And I think with enterprise solutions or whatever institutional adoption of rollups, people will start doing the same, where they'll decode the blobs that only a authorized group of people can know exactly what it means. And it means that you can both have scalable, verifiable data availability chain like Celestia, while you still keep all the best practices that you have done in your business world. So yeah, I could definitely see that working. And with new technologies like zero-knowledge rollups, etc., this will only accelerate. And it will bring adoption closer.
That's good. And let's now touch a bit data handling regulations compliance.
Okay.
Some industries require that data is stored in a particular geographical regions. So does Celestia offer some solutions to comply with these regulations?
Yeah, I think Celestia itself is a very unstoppable chain, meaning that if a full node in our network is replicating the data across the globe, then technically speaking, you have the data across the globe because it's made available again. And what is more important, I think, is the question of not how you store the data, but how you can interpret the data. This is what people want to know exactly what is happening with their, let's say, businesses that are under compliance or regulation. And I think this falls, again, to the same principles as with the current internet we have. Like, hey, if you're running, let's say, Facebook in EU, you need to run the service in EU. Otherwise, it's not good. But it doesn't eliminate the fact that you can run the same Facebook servers in US, Singapore, India, Turkey, etc. And I think the same applies to Celestia as a layer that, yes, while you need to run, let's say, a full node or whatever to be compliant with regulations, technically speaking, the data lives across the internet, which means, you can't stop it. Neither you can, force people to not send transactions. Like, it's kind of like restricting internet usage to people. I would say, basically any established chain that we have today, which are not L2s, side chains whatsoever, they're all monolithic chains. And as history has been showing to us, there is a vicious cycle of my monolithic L1 is always better, my monolithic L1 is always better, and we understand that it's basically getting us nowhere. So in order to stop this, we decided that everyone should start adopting the modular paradigm in order to grow the ecosystem, like I would say, the whole Web3 space further without this tribal effect of, please move to my new monolithic L1 and we'll be better. It's like, imagine if today we're in Denver, there's no more space to grow in Denver. Instead of adopting modular approach and thinking how you can plug in more districts, we're basically erasing the whole city and saying, okay, we'll build another city and another city. It will never scale. Like, this will be a very bad idea. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned consensus layer. What consensus mechanism does Celestia use, and how it helps to ensure scalability and security?
Yeah. So Celestia is very, I would say, blessed to be making our work based on the giants of the past, and they're also very active to today, which is Tendermint, aka Cosmos. And we have built basically our consensus layer using Cosmos SDK. Shout out to my boy Marco. He has been basically doing all this heavy lifting work, and we are reaping all the benefits of building an L1 pretty much fast. And Tendermint is a very interesting technique how you can build a single slot finality chain, meaning that if a new block has been produced, it's final. And you don't need to have this issues that, for example, Ethereum is facing. When a new block doesn't mean it's finalized, you need to wait a long time to be very, very sure that this is finalized, like this is final. Like you don't need to roll back. And on Celestia, because we're using Tendermint, every new block is just final, and we just move forward, which brings a lot of good things like good interoperability between rollups, aka good bridging. And yeah, I think in general, even Ethereum with Beamchain, everyone is moving to single slot finality because it just makes sense for the whole world to scale up. Yeah.
One of the Celestia's biggest innovation is this data availability sampling.
Yeah.
Could you explain in simple terms how it works?
So yeah, availability sampling is a technique when both you and I were running, let's say, light nodes on our phone, and imagine a block is 1 gigabyte. It's insanely big. And instead of us downloading the whole 1 gigabyte, which I think T-Mobile or AT&T will not be happy to serve, we do sampling of that big block, meaning we will randomly select 16, probe basically 16 times shares of the big block, and we will say, yes, because I sampled 16 times randomly each piece of the block, I can say to myself that I can see a city. And this is the same, yes, and this is the same, imagine if not two of us, but the rest of Denver is sampling randomly that the city exists. It basically means that collectively we have proof that the whole city exists. Like, you know, if you take the amount of people collectively sampling 16 times randomly, then yeah, you can safely say that we can see the whole thing. And this is what makes data availability sampling so cool, because instead of trusting the validator set to say that, hey, this block has been made available, we give this power back to the user or to Rollups to make decisions on their own when they say, yes, because I sampled it, I believe this is true. I see the data is available, I can move on with my life. And basically the hardware requirements is small. That's why right now you can do data availability sampling on your mobile phone using a web browser, which, yeah, opens up a new territory of, I would say, unstoppable applications when people will have Rollup-like clients. And yeah, users will be, you can't stop users. They'll just do whatever they want. They'll just have a lot of fun. They don't need to have pain with selecting, let's say, RPC providers. If you know there's a big problem, like when there's a new thing happening on chain. Like right now, we think of rollups of something like, oh no, it's so expensive and so hard, we can't do it anymore. But with service providers, again, it becomes easy. And then people will start thinking about, oh, I just want to build my app. And now we have so many websites that I think the whole planet will never have time to even visit each of them. And the same, we believe that, yeah, we should strive as a community to that goal, where rollups become basically an expression of doing something on chain without, you know, being constrained by anything like a VM or pricing or, yeah, even accessibility. So yeah, I think as more rollups we have, the better the security will be, as they will all ideally use a Celestia light node. And as we know from previous, the more light nodes you have, the more securely you can scale, the more you can get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, we're all like trying to scale according to the growing demand.
Yeah.
But what happens if the network gets the congestion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say on rollups itself, if it gets congested, it basically means that the blob will get bigger, because the rollup block will get bigger because more people want to send their data into it. And if the DA layer, the data availability layer below the rollup, is not capable to provide the block space, then you have congestion on the rollup side. Of course, we can enter here more things like execution, bottlenecks, but just to focus back on the DA side, what we've noticed with Eclipse, for example, when people were just sending each transaction as a tap, Eclipse was doing fine, and people thought it is congestion, but actually it was just crazy demand. Mm-hmm. And as we know with, for example, big events like Black Friday, congestion is actually bullish because it creates demand that you need to meet at point of sale, or like a point of basically customer acquisition, rather than saying, oh no, we're throwing hands and we will increase right now fees to $300 if you want to buy a small picture that costs you $1. And we think this is not good. And yeah, on rollup side, if the DA layer is abundant, accessible and verifiable, only the sky is the limit for rollups. And technically speaking, I myself strongly believe congestion shouldn't be a problem anymore in the future for future adoption. Yeah.
Okay, now I feel safe. Let's go down to practical things. Like if you are a rollup with gateway, there is no need to worry about integration because like Celestia is already integrated and data availability is already there for you to serve. But if I deploy a rollup independently, how do I integrate Celestia as my data availability? What's the process look like?
Yeah, so if you want to do everything on your own, first I'll ask a question of, common sense, why?
Do you think they should try?
Yes, just like as Vasil showed, just launch a rollup as fast as possible and go to your users. Like, life is too short to figure out how to build a rollup, like in a sense of like integrating all the pieces together because it's really intensive work. Of course, it will get better, but for now, if you really want to go to adoption, just use a service provider and move on faster. But if you still want to do this, then we have this thing called Celestia Nodes Canonical API, or the API in general, where you look at your rollup design and you look at the API that we provide, and then you just need to connect the dots in the sense that, okay, I generated a blob, now I need to use the Celestia Node API to send that blob to the DA layer. And by doing this, I basically tapped into the Celestia abundant DA, while, I still have my own control, how do I represent that data, or even how my rollup block is formed. And usually this is all abstracted with Gateway FM and any other service provider. And this is where I don't see even, even a need to build everything from scratch again. It's like, to give a good analogy, the same way we're building websites today with Vercel, I don't think we will have a future where people will build their websites and hosting from scratch, like back when I was starting in 2012 with PHP 5.3, where you need to build everything yourself. Now it's like, write your Next.js app, put it into Vercel, done, voila, you're ready. And you immediately focus on distribution and customer, basically, I would say, acquisition. Same with Gateway FM. I just know I need a rollup, I go there, click 3 things, and presto, bam, we're good. And I go talk to my users and I ask them to play around, share with me the feedback, and I just improve, iterate on the product faster. And I think this is the new wave of developers, especially Web2 developers, that will understand why they want to build on Web3. Because they see that the developer experience is basically the same as in Vercel. But just different names.
That's cool. Thank you for saying this. I really appreciate this. Are there any advices, like to optimize the performance when building a rollup with Celestia, maybe some best practices you can advise?
I think the best practice I could advise is to think out of the box. A lot of people, I remember in 2017, 2018, people were saying, don't build on this because it's too expensive. And if you know the positive feedback loop, if you're saying that everything is too expensive, people will stop innovating. With right now easy service provisioning and abundant block space, we should adopt this mindset that do whatever, build whatever. Just try to experiment as much as possible. Don't think about the cost because it's becoming irrelevant. Only making the community, I would say, happy is what makes sense. And building an app like there is no cost. Because this is the way everyone is doing right now, in the sense that we should think about building an application for the end user like they just don't even know it's a blockchain anymore, blurring the lines, as I would say. And then with account abstraction, how people don't want to use, know even what is a gas or fee token, basically paymasters, this is becoming a reality, where let's say you and I will go on the street in Denver and onboard a couple of people into our, Rocket app. They don't even know it's a blockchain. They'll just say, oh, it's cool, I will use it. And the same, I don't ask creators of Instagram how they implement Instagram. I just use Instagram.
That's where we are heading.
Yes.
That's sure. And thank you. It was very inspiring speech. Go and build and don't think about costs.
Yes.
It will be cost efficient in future for sure, and it's getting there with all the technical enhancement we are in the gateway build for like making rollups cost efficient. Yep. It's already as cheap as running Web 2 application. I mean, like it's for high scaling applications, for payments on chain, it can be really cheap and accessible, and yeah, just go and build.
Exactly. Just go and build whatever, cook it, ship it, think about the user. It's all about going direct. And more importantly, it's all about finding the friends as you're making along, when you're going along the way. As I truly believe Web3 from Web2, what is differentiating a lot is how much people you are basically uniting under a simple message, and then how much people are trying to self-coordinate to get it done. While in Web2, it still feels more kind of like of a competitive landscape. And in Web3, people mostly are really caring about how can I help an X through an Y service that I have, so we can all achieve a Z outcome. I truly see it.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
Exactly.
By the end of the day.
Yes.
So, speaking about building, what is there on the roadmap of Celestia for 2025? What are exciting improvements and innovations we should be waiting for?
Yes, I think we have, so first we have 3 big community goals on the roadmap to achieve. First one is, again, abundant block space. For me specifically, fast blocks, slow squares is what is really amazing to see how you can achieve, I would say, Solana style 400 milliseconds, while the squares are getting, slower to build around, meaning that you need to spend less time verifying each block, aka each square. Second part is light nodes everywhere. I truly believe that in order for us to achieve this massive adoption, everyone just needs to run the light node by default without even thinking that it's a light node. This is where I like the talk a lot from Connor C-Node, where he was talking about a lot about how light nodes should be everywhere, the same that we think about HTTPS connections. Mm-hmm. No one cares about it because it's default. And last but not least, this is where DevRel is working very hard with the protocol teams and the rest of the community, is lazy bridging. Lazy bridging is a lifestyle, is not a bridging protocol. And you want to make sure that people have immediate access to the user base and to liquidity using lazy bridging techniques, which we are right now working hard to bring to life. And I really hope that, in this year, first Rollup, when they see how they can have access to liquidity and users, they will stop caring about liquidity fragmentation. It will just become a meme of the past.
I wish you good luck with implementing your plans, and I'm happy to be here and to follow Celestia as our partner here on this journey.
Thank you so much.
Let's see what future holds for us.
Yes, crossing my fingers.